You know that moment when the truth smacks you in the face like a freight train? When someone you trusted, maybe even loved, turns around and betrays you? Yeah, that moment changes everything. And if that person was a narcissist, oh, it hits different. Because they don't flinch, they don't apologize, they don't even look back. You're left shattered and they walk away like nothing happened. But what if? What if you could actually hear what they really feel after they betray you? Not the fake version, not the manipulative act. I'm talking about the raw, unfiltered truth they'll never say out loud. Today, we're going there. I'm pulling back the curtain on what's going on inside the mind of a narcissist after the betrayal and what it really means for you. Let's get real. Here's the part no one tells you. Narcissists do feel shame. They're not emotionless robots. They have emotional reactions just like anyone else, but the way they process those emotions, that's where everything flips. See, when a healthy person does something hurtful, something wrong, they might feel guilt, regret. Maybe they reflect, maybe they apologize. That's because they can handle being imperfect. They can tolerate the discomfort of owning their actions. A narcissist can't. The second shame creeps in, even a whisper of it, they go to war with it. Because to a narcissist, shame is more than uncomfortable. It's unbearable. It threatens the illusion they've built around themselves. And their illusion is everything. So instead of facing that shame, they bury it fast, brutally fast. They lie to themselves. They rewrite the story. They minimize what they did. It wasn't that bad. You're too sensitive. They brought it on themselves. They have to frame their betrayal as justified or even necessary, because the alternative, that would mean they're the problem. That would mean they did something cruel, something selfish, and the narcissist's ego will do anything to avoid that truth. You might be thinking, but they seem so calm after what they did, so unaffected, like it never even happened. And that's not because they didn't feel anything. It's because they went into damage control mode, not with you, but with themselves. Their image matters more than your feelings. That mask they wear, it has to stay spotless. Even if, deep down, there's a flicker of guilt or self-disgust, they won't let it live long enough to grow. Instead, they'll lash out, or deflect, or go silent. Anything to avoid sitting in the consequences of their own behavior. It's emotional sleight of hand, misdirection. They make you question your worth, your memory, your reality, all so they don't have to look in the mirror. And get this, some narcissists have learned to mimic remorse. They might give a fake apology, maybe even cry. But that's not about you. It's about keeping control. It's damage control. Again, just in a different costume. Real shame would require vulnerability, accountability, growth. A narcissist doesn't go there. They're too afraid of what they'd find if they actually stopped to feel it all. So they push it down, they blame, they rationalize, and they walk away from the wreckage they caused, convincing themselves that you deserved it. But don't let their silence fool you. Don't let their bravado or indifference convince you that what happened didn't matter. Shame is there. It flickers in moments they won't admit to anyone, not even themselves. But rather than letting it change them, they silence it. They choose ego over empathy, over connection, over truth. And that right there, that's the difference between someone who heals and someone who just keeps hurting people. Let's get something straight. When a narcissist betrays you, it's not a moment of weakness. It's not about love gone wrong or a misunderstanding. It's a calculated move, a power play. Their betrayal isn't about connection, and it sure as hell isn't about you. It's about control, always. Control is their oxygen. It's how they feel safe, seen, superior. You were never in a relationship with a partner. You were in a power dynamic with someone who needed to feel in charge of your emotions, your reality, even your pain, that betrayal you went through. It was never just a slip-up or a moment of temptation. It was about tipping the scales in their favor, shifting the balance of emotional power. It's how they reaffirm their control when they feel threatened by your independence, your happiness, your strength, or sometimes just your ability to see through them. The moment you start stepping into your own power, the moment you stop needing their validation or questioning your worth, they feel the control slipping. And that's when betrayal becomes a tool. It could look like cheating, ghosting, smearing your name behind your back, or suddenly turning cold. And each of those choices serves a purpose: to destabilize you, to confuse you, to yank the rug out from under you so they can feel powerful again. Because a narcissist's biggest fear isn't being alone, it's being irrelevant, invisible, out of control. And betrayal, twisted as it sounds, is a way for them to put themselves back in the spotlight, to remind themselves they still matter, even if it's at your expense. Now here's the kicker. While you're spinning in circles trying to understand how someone who claimed to care could hurt you like that, they've already moved on to their next power fix. They don't stop to think about the pain they caused. That would require empathy, and empathy gets in the way of control. What they focus on instead is your reaction. Are you devastated? Are you begging for answers? Are you angry, heartbroken, wrecked? If so, they feel powerful, because in their mind, if they can still affect you, they still own a part of you. And that's what they want. Not love, not closeness, not real intimacy. Ownership, emotional leverage. And if you don't react, if you go quiet, heal, move on, stop feeding the dynamic, that's when they start panicking. That's when they circle back, not because they miss you, but because they miss the control. They miss being able to pull the strings. That hoovering, the texts out of nowhere, the "I've been thinking about you" messages after weeks or months of silence. It's not about reconnection. It's a test, a probe. Can they still reach in and twist the knife? Because for the narcissist, betrayal isn't the end. It's a power shift. And if they sense they've lost that edge, they'll do whatever it takes to get it back. That's why closure with them feels impossible. That's why logic doesn't work. That's why you can't reason with someone who wasn't playing by the same emotional rules to begin with. Once you understand this, once you really see that their betrayal wasn't about some emotional slip-up, but a deliberate power move, you stop personalizing it. You stop blaming yourself, because it was never about your worth. It was always about their need to dominate the emotional playing field. Here's something that will mess with your head if you don't see it clearly. Narcissists are master storytellers. And no, not the kind who tell bedtime tales or share heartfelt memories. I'm talking about the kind who rewrite reality to protect one thing and one thing only: their ego. That ego is fragile, paper thin. It might look like confidence on the outside, even arrogance, but underneath it all is a deep, constant fear that they are not enough, that they'll be exposed, that someone will see the truth they work so hard to avoid. So when they betray you, when they lie, cheat, discard, manipulate, they can't afford to see themselves as the villain. So they do the only thing they know how to do: flip the script. The moment they sense guilt creeping in, the instant they feel that uncomfortable nudge of "I messed up," they start reconstructing the narrative. Not with facts, not with accountability, with a version of reality that lets them walk away feeling justified. They turn themselves into the victim and you into the problem. She was too controlling and he didn't understand me. I had no choice. Suddenly, you are the reason they had to cheat, lie, ghost, or destroy what you had. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to feel true to them. Because the truth, the real, honest truth that they hurt someone who trusted them, that's too heavy, too real. So they edit and revise and delete the parts that don't serve the version of themselves they need to believe in. And the scary part, they're convincing. They don't just lie to you. They lie to themselves. They believe their own twisted version of events. That's why when you confront them with facts, timelines, receipts, emotions, they act like you're crazy. That's not what happened. You're remembering it wrong. I never said that. It's gaslighting, yes, but it's also self-preservation. If they admit the truth to you, and they'd have to admit it to themselves, and they won't. They can't. Because to face that would mean facing their own deep sense of inadequacy, and that is their greatest fear. What's even more brutal is when they take that rewritten story and share it with others. They smear your name. They poison mutual friendships. They twist the story so that by the time it gets back to you, you don't even recognize yourself in it. Suddenly, you're the unstable one. You're the reason things fell apart. They're painting themselves as the one who tried so hard, who gave so much, who just couldn't make it work with someone as difficult or emotionally demanding as you. And it stings. It hurts because it's so unfair, because you know what really happened behind closed doors. But the narcissist doesn't care about fairness. They care about narrative. They care about control. They care about looking good, not being good. And in their world, the story must end with them on top. It must end with them as the one who overcame, who escaped, who wasn't appreciated enough, because that's the only way they can sleep at night. They don't want reconciliation. They don't want growth. They want relief from the truth, from the consequences, from the guilt they can't afford to carry. So they build this distorted version of the past and live inside it like it's real. And if you don't know what you're dealing with, you might find yourself trying to defend against lies that were never even meant to be fair. You're fighting for truth, but they're fighting for image. This is why closure is so hard, because you're sitting there with the raw facts, the emotion, the reality of what actually happened, and they're out there spinning it into fiction. But once you see this clearly, once you stop expecting the narcissist to ever admit the truth or own their actions, you free yourself from the trap. You stop waiting for them to wake up. You stop trying to prove your side of the story to someone who rewrote the ending before you even had a chance to speak. Narcissists don't just crave validation, they depend on it. It's not a want, it's a need, a full-blown addiction. They use validation the way an addict uses a drug, to feel powerful, to escape reality, to avoid the emptiness they don't want to face. And just like any addiction, it takes more and more over time to get the same high. Compliments, attention, praise, admiration, they feed off it. It's how they build their identity. Without it, they start to unravel. They feel exposed, unworthy, invisible. So what does this have to do with betrayal? Everything. Because for a narcissist, betrayal isn't just an act of infidelity or cruelty, it's a performance, a strategy, a way to secure that hit of validation. Think about it. When they betray you, when they cheat or lie or manipulate, it usually comes with someone else on the other end of it. Someone new, someone shiny, someone who doesn't know the truth yet. That new person, they become the narcissist's next source of supply. It's not about love. It's not about connection. It's about getting that next fix of praise, attention, adoration. And if they have to blow up your world to get it, so be it. What makes it even more twisted is that your pain, your reaction, becomes part of their validation too. If you cry, if you rage, if you chase after them for answers, it makes them feel important, powerful, wanted. It confirms that they still have emotional control, that they still matter, that they can break you and walk away feeling superior. And in their mind, that's a win. Because validation for a narcissist doesn't always come from admiration. Sometimes it comes from destruction, from knowing they had the ability to ruin your peace, shake your sense of self, and make you question your worth. And it doesn't stop there. Even after the betrayal, they keep seeking that hit. They might flaunt their new relationship, post performative pictures, talk about how happy they are. It's not for their happiness. It's for yours, or rather for your reaction. Because if you're still watching, still hurting, still wondering how they moved on so fast, that means they're still relevant. That's the drug. That's the high. The irony is that none of this actually makes them feel secure. It just numbs the insecurity temporarily. Like any addiction, the rush wears off. That new person stops being new. The attention fades. And the narcissist, they're right back where they started. Empty, restless, needing another hit. So the cycle continues. They keep chasing the next person, the next source of admiration, the next reaction. It's not about growth. It's not about connection. It's about ego, about propping up a false self that can't survive without constant applause. That's why they never stop seeking validation, even long after you're gone. They might resurface out of nowhere, send a message, like a photo, reach out just to check in. It's not because they miss you, is because they miss the way you made them feel about themselves. You were a mirror, reflecting back their greatness, their desirability, their power. And when you stopped giving them that reflection, they had to find another one. Fast understanding. This doesn't make the betrayal hurt less, but it does give you clarity. It helps you stop internalizing their actions, because their betrayal wasn't about your shortcomings. It was about their addiction to validation, their inability to sit with themselves without applause. And the truth is, you could have done everything right, loved them fully, supported them endlessly, and they still would have betrayed you. Because it was never about you. It was about feeding an ego that's never full. Narcissists don't regret hurting you. That's one of the hardest truths to sit with, especially when you gave them everything, when you were loyal, loving, patient, and maybe even forgiving after they crossed lines they had no business crossing. But when the mask slips and the betrayal comes, what you think you're going to get is remorse. What you hope you'll get is accountability. But what you actually get is fear. Not fear of losing, fear of being exposed, fear of their image crumbling, fear that the carefully crafted version of themselves they've sold to the world will unravel because you know the truth, and you do know the truth. That's what makes you dangerous to them. You've seen behind the curtain. You've witnessed the contradiction between who they pretend to be and who they really are. And that gap, that disconnect, that's their deepest shame. Not the betrayal, not the lies, not the damage they caused, but the fear that someone will put the pieces together and realize their whole identity is a performance. That's what keeps them up at night. Not your pain, your knowledge. So what happens when the truth starts to catch up to them? They don't lean in and apologize. They scramble, they cover, they gaslight, they discredit you. Anything to keep the truth from spreading. Because if too many people believe you, if the image cracks wide open, they'll be forced to confront the one thing they avoid at all costs, their own reflection. Not the filtered, curated version, the real one. The one filled with insecurity, rage, emptiness, and shame. And they will do almost anything to keep from facing that. This is why, after betrayal, their focus is not on how to make it right with you. It's on damage control. They start rewriting the story. They play the victim. They paint you as unstable, too sensitive, ungrateful. Whatever suits the narrative, they need to protect themselves. And if that doesn't work, they smear you. They twist facts. They try to make sure you are the one who looks bad, who seems crazy, who can't let go. It's not personal. It's strategic, because they know that if they can break your credibility, they can bury the truth. They don't regret what they did. They regret that it might tarnish how others see them. That's the core of it. Their reputation means more than your reality. The illusion of who they are matters more than the harm they caused. It's not about guilt. It's about preservation. And if protecting their ego requires throwing you under the bus, so be it. They will burn bridges, erase history, rewrite timelines just to keep their false self intact. And here's what really drives it. They know deep down that you have power, emotional power. You were close enough to see the real version of them. You were present for the moments when the act slipped, when the insecurity bled through, when the charm turned cold. That means you can expose them, maybe not publicly, but energetically. And even the thought of that, it terrifies them. Not because they care about justice, but because their whole identity relies on the belief that no one sees through them. So when you confront them, don't expect them to crumble in guilt. Expect deflection, expect outrage, expect cold silence or over-the-top charm, anything to protect the mask. They'll spin it however they need to, because for a narcissist, avoiding shame is a matter of psychological survival. And hurting you, that was just collateral damage. Watching a narcissist move on fast, sometimes before you even realize the relationship is over, can feel like emotional whiplash. One day they're love bombing you, making promises, playing soulmate. The next, they've completely vanished or replaced you like you never mattered. It feels personal, it feels cruel, but here's what's really happening. Their attachment was never rooted in depth or emotional connection. It was transactional, conditional, based on what you did for their ego, not who you were as a person. That's why they can let go of you without looking back, because they were never truly bonded in the first place. To you, the relationship was about intimacy, vulnerability, trust. To them, it was about supply, admiration, attention, validation. You were a source of something they needed to feel good about themselves. And when you stopped giving it, or when they found someone else who could give it more intensely or with less resistance, the switch flipped that quick. There's no grief, no pause, no processing. They don't need time to heal because they weren't emotionally invested to begin with. They were strategically attached. That's a huge difference. So when they move on fast, posting new photos, jumping into another serious relationship, acting like they've never been happier, don't confuse it with growth or recovery. It's not healing. It's replacing. It's distraction. It's a desperate attempt to avoid the void that opens when their source of attention disappears. That new person isn't a soulmate. They're a mirror, just like you were. And when that mirror stops reflecting back the image the narcissist wants to see, the cycle will repeat. It's also why closure is so impossible with them, because in your mind, the connection was real. You replay the good moments. You look for the meaning. You grieve the potential. But for them, it was a performance, a carefully constructed dynamic that served their needs until it didn't. And when it stopped serving them, they cut the cord. No explanation, no real conversation, just emotional disappearance. It's not because they're heartless. It's because they don't process emotions the way most people do. They don't feel attachment as commitment. They feel it as control. And what makes it worse? They want you to see them move on fast. It's part of the control. They know it will hurt. They know it will leave you questioning your worth. That's intentional. Because if you're sitting there wondering, how could they replace me so fast? Then they still have power. That's the final form of the manipulation. Emotional erasure. Acting like you never mattered, like you were a placeholder in their story, while you're left with the wreckage and confusion of something that felt deeply real to you. But none of it was about connection, not in the way you understand it. It was about access. What did you give them? How did you make them feel? Did you boost their ego, reinforce their image, give them constant attention? That's what they were attached to. Not you, the function you served. That's why they can swap you out for someone else with zero emotional delay. It's not about love, it's about supply. And until you understand that, you'll keep thinking you failed, that you weren't good enough, that if you'd done more, they'd still be there. But that's the trap. The truth is, you could have been perfect, and they still would have moved on because they weren't looking for a partner, they were looking for a mirror. And the moment that mirror stopped reflecting back exactly what they needed, they found another one.